When I've talked about movies or shows on this channel, whether it is praising or criticizing them, it's mostly on the writing. Writing is all wells and goods for a story and characters, and it's still the most important thing to have because without good writing, it's hard to make a story and all its elements work. But when doing this, I kind of overlook something that sets movies apart from books. Movies are visual forms of media.
Well, duh.
Movies are more than just their writing. They use a visual medium to help in the telling of a story, so shame on me for not talking about that more. Visuals don't entirely carry bad writing. I mean, one of the best looking movies of all time is one of my least favorites because the writing is hot ass. Not in that way. Movies are more than just their writing. It's their sound design, editing, music, cinematography, acting, and visuals, to name a few. Because that's where the bulk of a director's personality shines through. Not to say personality can't shine through in the writing. I think James Gunn is pretty identifiable by his writing style, and I would say the same for Vivian Madrano, for better or worse.
I'm f***ing Adam! I'm the f***ing man, and you're just some f***ing clown or something! I started everything on Earth! All of mankind came from these f***ing... You all should be worshipping me, you ungrateful, disgusting losers!
But I think some of the most iconic movies are recognizable by the director's specific personality in their directing. Christopher Nolan, Guillermo del Toro, Quentin Tarantino, and Tim Burton are some examples that come to mind. I think another director that should be up there is Joseph Kosinski, which I didn't even know who he was, but there are several movies of his that I'm really big fans of, all of which are pretty well known. The biggest one is without a doubt Top Gun Maverick, which I've talked about and even gave it the top spot for my 2022 tier list. Another film of his that I'm actually a pretty big fan of and want to talk about someday is Oblivion. And the third movie that I love of his and the subject of today's video, obviously based on the thumbnail and the title, but it is Tron Legacy. Tron Legacy is one of those movies that I don't see many people talking about. There's definitely a couple of videos here and there, all of which I think you should check out, but this is not a megamind in terms of internet presence.
Oh, you're a villain, all right. Just not a super one.
Yeah? What's the difference?
Presentation!
Which I think is a darn shame because this movie deserves a lot more attention and love. Because it's actually a pretty good movie, but by no means a perfect one or even a masterpiece. I probably wouldn't even call it a great movie, but I think a good one with some great parts in it. But before that, let's do the negatives. The CGI. Oh, I don't mean the CGI for the world of Tron or the vehicles or the action scenes. I mean the CGI used for Jeff Bridges' face to make him look young. It's hard to remember since for the most part de-aging effects have come a long way, but Tron Legacy was one of the first movies to ever do this. Man, does it show. Flashback Kevin and Clue both look like they belong in a PS4 game. It had been a minute since I've watched this movie and I actually said yikes out loud the first time I saw him because woof. I'm also not going to pretend that this has the best story or characters of all time. The first 10 minutes or so in the real world feel very paint by numbers and like it's going through the motions. I get a very 2010 vibe in the worst way, with parts feeling like it's trying to be edgy cool while also dumping a bunch of exposition on us. Thankfully, the movie picks up once Sam actually goes into the grid. Let's go with the obvious first, but the visuals are incredible. They perfectly match the look of being in a video game. The sharp geometric shapes of everything keep the design simple but fresh, and a lot of this is brought over from the original Tron movie. The use of colors is used very effectively. Everything is black but outlined in fluorescent lights that help illuminate the world enough where we can still see things while still keeping everything a perpetual night, showing us the dark beauty of this world. There are three main colors used throughout the world, with everything being white, blue, or orange, with each color representing something different. Orange is the color of Clue and his army, which in Hinduism, orange often represents fire and purity, which perfectly fits Clue's goal of removing any and all perceived imperfections to create his/Finn's idea of a perfect world. often doing so through violent methods. Orange can also be used to represent danger, again, appropriate for the antagonists of the film. It also works since it's a rebellion against Kevin, who designed the grid all in blue, a much cooler color, so the sharp contrast of orange, a much warmer color, really helps sell the clue coup. Blue is another color heavily featured, with it used for the actual environment and most of the civilian programs. Blue can represent many things, but the biggest ones that relate to the film are imagination, inspiration, and open spaces. Imagination and inspiration are the most important ones because that's what the grid was made out of from Kevin Flynn, with the hope that this new culture and world could inspire solutions for real life problems in the real world. The final color, and I don't think this one is as prominent as the first two, and honestly, I just might be looking into it too much, but that's what video essays are for, am I right? For you, dear viewer, to listen and watch someone talk a disgusting amount about a topic or interest that we both share. There are only 3 characters throughout the film that I would say show white consistently in terms of the lighting, in a way that has some representation for it. And that is Kevin, Sam, and Cora, all of who are unique from other programs in the grid. For users to have more of a white tint to their light could be seen as some religious symbolism, since Kevin is the creator of the grid and his creation does end up rebelling against him. The religious symbolism might be a stretch and is more of a personal interpretation than a very obvious intended meaning. A similar thing could be said for Sam, since he is also a user, but I think it more applies for Kevin than anything. Cora, on the other hand, is an ISO, which is a program that was created from the grid and not a result of being programmed by a user. She's the last of her kind and seen as the solution for our world with the knowledge she possesses, a new beginning for both her and the real world. White can also represent innocence, which is something that Cora often demonstrates, sometimes in comedic ways, and others for more heartfelt moments. Attributing color to intended meanings in movies can be tricky sometimes, since each color can have so many different meanings, and that's before you start looking at different cultures. Plus, my whole white analysis could mean jack shit, because it's probably not even white, but hey, it's fun to think about color theory in film, to keep the old brain moving and not slowly withering away and deteriorating until I can't remember anything. Moving from shapes and colors, the likes of which I've never seen, I want to talk about the camera work and how it's done so well, and if you want a more in-depth analysis of it, go check out CGY's video on it, which I'll include in the link in the description of the video. But something that really stuck out to me was how the camera is used to portray a sense of scale in a lot of shots, which I feel like it's not as common in modern movies, or maybe it's just the movies that I just happen to watch, because it still annoys me how the scale was kinda terrible in GXK, and I like that movie. Enough, at least. I mean, come on, people. You can't tell me this is more impactful than this in terms of scale. Tron Legacy takes full advantage of scale with the camera by extending to full screen when action scenes begin, specifically with vehicles or when Sam first enters the grid. It helps make it feel much more captivating. The sound design is also on point, especially with the light cycles and discs, but the real audio superstar is the score done by Daft Punk, and man does it hold up well, and especially the more emotional pieces still give me chills. It's easily one of my favorite movie soundtracks of all time, and that's going against some stiff competition, but that's how great it is. I wish I could give a more in-depth reason why I like it, but I'm about as musically knowledgeable and gifted as Stephen Hawking is at standing up and playing a game of catch with all those children on that one island. On a filmmaking level, Tron Legacy is without a doubt very competently made. I easily say it's excellently made in that aspect. Writing is a little weaker, but I still think it's serviceable, although with some really good potential. For one, I feel like this movie was ahead of the curve, at least in some things, so keep in mind that what I'm going to say, I have not seen every sci-fi movie with AI. Heck, I have not even seen the original Tron movie, so please don't hurt me. But the idea of the ISOs being these almost sentient AI programs created from the grid itself is really cool and makes me realize that Free Guy isn't that unique, which is unfortunate because that is a movie that has gone down in quality for me over the years. Clue is also MCU Ultron 1.0, even acting very similarly to his creator and seeing imperfection. I'm willing to bet there are AIs in movies that do the same thing that did that before Legacy, but leave me alone, I'm trying to expand my movies that I've watched list, so so be patient. I'm also saying this is all for me being exposed to this stuff, not that it was the first in movie history to do these things. Ultron does look way better though. It is cool to see Kevin Flynn realize and accept that Clue is not some evil program that has gone rogue. Well, to a certain extent, yes, but he is him and reflects his imperfect view of the world, and how he has this constant obsessive chase with perfection, which led him to being trapped for years in the grid, leaving everything behind in the real world and missing out on his son growing up. Cora is a character that I want to like more, but we get such little time with her that I can't. She's not dislikable by any means. Olivia Wilde does a great job for giving Cora much more life and making the most with the little screen time she has. I do enjoy the scene with her talking with Sam, asking about what the real world is like, which pays off later, but I feel like it could have been stronger if they had had at least one more conversation like that. As is, she's fine.
What's it like?
The sun?
Yeah.
Man. I've never had to describe it before. Warm. Radiant. Beautiful.
Sam and Kevin are kind of the same thing, where they aren't bad, but if they had some more time to interact to help build that bond, it would make the goodbye more emotional. Although I think in addition to all the acting, Daft Punk's score really carries these scenes. I mean, listen to the music in this scene and tell me it doesn't hit you to some degree on an emotional level.
Goodbye, kiddo.
It's still emotional, and maybe it's the nostalgia of seeing this with my dad a long time ago in theaters and imagining my dad doing that or something, which causes the big sad. Past kid versions of ourselves are so weird, I tell ya. The ending is nice though. I feel like they could have had this "we're gonna change the world" epic type tone, but instead we get a nice final shot of the sun where Cora finally gets to experience all its warmth and see it for the first time. Sam is so lucky. Dude stops a crazy AI from invading his world and then gets a hot goth girlfriend at the end. Maybe that's the reason why I actually like this film. It's that kind of post-apocalyptic type feel where a dude meets a hot girl and now they're boyfriend and girlfriend. Where's my goth girlfriend universe? I'd also accept the muscle mommy, which would honestly be the preferred choice universe if we are bargaining. Can you tell I'm lonely? And that's Tron Legacy, which by no means a masterpiece of a film. I think on a technical level it's astounding, but writing is not as much, but there are clearly attempts to give the characters depth. I do know the writing had issues with different strikes going on at the time, so parts of it were delayed. But all in all, I think Tron Legacy is a highly underrated film with a lot of care and passion going into it. And with so many movies being almost all CGI, I feel like this is one of the films that actually does it right. It's a film that I'm very fond of and hopefully that it continues to slowly get more attention because it definitely deserves it. While making this video, I found out they are making a third Tron set to release in 2025, and honestly I have no idea what to think of it, but pessimism leads me to not get my hopes up. But what I do know is that Tron Legacy is friggin' awesome, and I love it a lot, and my love for it only increases the more I watch it. My name's Cameron, I hope you enjoyed this video. Spank all those buttons, stay safe out there, and I'll see you all later. Bye bye.